Welcome back to the class. So let us discuss a few more questions in the chapter Heredity. So first of all, why did Mendel select pea plants for his experiment? So he experimented with the pea plants, that is Pisum sativum, and he experimented with almost 10,000 plants for more than 7 years. So why did he select pea plants? That means pea plants have certain salient features. That means the flowers are bisexual, and it is very easy to perform self pollination and also cross pollination. Next one, pea plants exhibit distinct characteristic features which can be easily studied. And hybridization, formation of various different hybrid plants can be easily observed in pea plants. So that is why he selected pea plants for his experiment. Next, what characters Mendel selected in pea plants? So pea plants exhibit certain distinct characters which can be easily studied. So that is why he has selected seven characteristic features. What are they? First of all, the color of the flower, violet and white. So different colors. And in the same way, position of the flower, it's axillary or apical, the second one. And color of the seed, yellow, white. Shape of the seed, round and wrinkled. Color of the pod, yellow and green. And shape of the pod, flat and constricted. And length of the stem, tall and dwarf. So that is how he selected seven characters which can easily be studied. That is color of the flower, position of the flower, color of the seed, shape of the seed, color of the pod, shape of the pod, and length of the stem. These seven colors he had selected. What are the laws proposed by Mendel? So, after a long study and observation, Mendel proposed three laws. So, first thing, law of segregation, law of dominance, law of independent assortment. So, first of all, law of segregation. During the formation of gametes, so it was already, we know that each character is under the control of two factors. Each trait is under the control of two factors. So that is why during the formation of gametes, the factors segregate independently. That is one thing. And the next one is law of dominance. So in a hybrid condition, that means in heterozygous condition, that means when one trait is under the control of two factors, one factor will dominate over the other factor. So the factor which the trait which dominates the other trait is called dominant, and the trait which is suppressed is called as recessive. That is called law of dominance. And the next one is law of independent assortment. That means when in hybrid condition, that means when two different factors are in the same in the same trait, so the factors do not influence each other. They remain separate, independent. That means tall plant remains tall, dwarf plant remains dwarf, and they do not mix together. So each factor have its own individual trait. It will not influence the other factor. So in this way, Mendel proposed law of segregation, law of dominance, law of independent assortment. So these are the three laws proposed by Mendel. What happens in a dihybrid cross in F1 generation and F2 generation? Suppose when let us say two characters into consideration, that is the color of the seed and the shape of the seed. Color of the seed is yellow and green. Yellow is dominant, green is recessive. And in the same way, shape of the seed, round is dominant and wrinkled is recessive. So when a cross is made between the two pure varieties, that means the plant which is having round color, round shape and yellow color seeds, with it is crossed with the seed, the plant which produces the seed with green and wrinkled. So in the F1 generation, so we get all round and yellow color seeds. And in F2 generation, the ratio is 9 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1. That means that is the ratio, phenotype ratio is 9 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1. And the next question, if a trait A exists in 10% of a population of an asexually reproducing species, and a trait B exists in 60% of the same population. Guess the trait that has arisen earlier. So, in a population where the organisms reproduce asexually, they produce only the same type of organisms. So, A exists only in 10%. That means, guess that which trait is that arises earlier. That means the population, this 60% of the population exists earlier, and only 10% of the population is formed later. So that is why the population which was existing earlier is 60% of the population. That is population B. Okay, and because asexually reproducing plants, the population, the organisms are produced the same type of organism. Only 10% is produced later. So that is why which one was early existing early means see, that is population, that is B. That is the trait B exists earlier. How do Mendel's experiments show that the traits may be dominant or recessive? So, when one trait is under the control of the same factors, it is called as homozygous. When it is under the control of two different factors, it is called heterozygous condition, which was already we have discussed. And so when in heterozygous condition, one factor will dominate over the other factor. The factor which dominates is called a dominant. The factor which is suppressive is called as a recessive. That is one thing. Next one, how do Mendel's experiments show that traits are inherited independently? So, according to Mendel's law of independent assortment, that means in hybrid condition, that means when one trait is under the control of two different factors, what happens? One factor will dominate over the other factor, but they do not influence each other. So that is why that means only one factor can be seen and other factor is suppressed. So that is why Mendel's experiments show that traits are inherited independently. Okay, they do not influence each other. A man with a blood group A marries a woman with a blood group O, and their daughter has blood group O. Is this information enough to tell you which of the traits blood group A or O is dominant? That means it is in hybrid condition. So that means the blood group is A and O. So in the next generation, only O group is seen. The daughter is having O group, which shows that O is dominating A. That means A group is recessive and O group is dominant factor. Okay, so that is why we can say that so the trait O blood group is dominant because A is suppressed. Only O group was seen in the daughter's blood group. Okay, how is the sex of the child determined in human beings? So human beings are unisexual organisms. They contain only either male reproductive organs or female reproductive organs, and the chromosomal number in man is 23 pairs. 23 pairs means 46. So among 46, 44 are autosomes. 44 are autosomes and 2 are allosomes. 2 are allosomes. So 44 are autosomes, 2 are allosomes. And during the formation of gametes, what happens? So 2 allosomes are, that means 44 autosomes are same in male and female, but the difference is in allosomes. So the difference in allosomes can be denoted as XY in the case of male, XX in the case of female. During the formation of gametes, what will happen? That means meiosis will take place. So 44 means 22x, 22y in the case of male. In the case of female, 22x, 22x. Okay, so what happens when a male gamete with Y chromosome fuses with the egg ovum? It will result in So if Y allosome fuses with the X chromosome of a female, it will result in a male child. If X chromosome of a male fuses with the X chromosome of female, it will result in a female child. So in the nature, there is always a chance for the formation of 1:1 ratio for the formation of a male and a female child. So the difference, that means the Y chromosome of a male determines the sex of the baby. That means if Y chromosome fuses with the X chromosome of a female, it will result in a male child. If X chromosome of a male fuses with the X chromosome of female, it will result in a female child. So 22X, 22Y. Here 22X, 22Y in the female. In male, so that is why man, that means the Y chromosome of a male determines the sex of that means male child, and X chromosome of a male determines the female child. So that is how in a human being the sex is determined. So the allosome present in the male and female are different. It is denoted as XY in the case of male, XX in the case of female. So 44, totally 46 chromosomes, that is 44 plus 44 autosomes and 2 allosomes. So these allosomes present in male XY, and in female it is XX. And during the formation of gametes, what will happen? 22 autosomes and X chromosome, and 22 autosomes Y chromosome. In the case of females, 22 autosomes X allosome, and in the 22 autosomes and X allosome. So this, suppose if this fuses with the female gamete, it will result in a female child. If this Y chromosome, 22Y chromosome is fuses with the female gamete, it will result in a male child. That is how sex is determined in the case of human beings. And next, in which animals sex is not genetically determined? That means in the case of snails, sex is not genetically determined. That means that after they are born, the sex may be changed, male into female. That is, temperature plays an important role in the case of reptiles. That means the temperature at which the egg fertilizes determines the sex of the organism in the case of reptiles. And in the case of snails, which belong to the phylum Mollusca, so it is not genetically determined. That means the sex of the individual can be changed. Okay, that is in case of lower organisms like snails. And the temperature at which the egg fertilizes determines the sex of the organism in the case of reptiles. That is the thing. And you can, another question, explain monohybrid ratio. So Mendel has taken, for example, he has taken tall plant pure variety and short plant or a dwarf plant, and gametes have formed. Gamete, that means segregation of the gametes had taken place, segregation of the factors during the formation of gametes has taken place. And in F1 generation, what happened? Only hybrid is formed. That means the factor is under the control, so the trait is under the control of two different factors. So in F1 generation, only tall plants can be seen. And in F2 generation, where the plants which are formed in the F1 generation are taken as a parents. So if the cross is made between these two plants, what will happen? The plants are 3/4 of the plants are tall and only 1/4 is dwarf. But this dwarf character was not seen in F1 generation. Why? Because it was a recessive character. It was dominated by the tall character. So that is why here in F2 generation, 3/4 are dominant and 1/4 is dwarf. And if you see the genetic ratio, genotype ratio, the ratio is 1:2:1. What is 1? 1 is homozygous dominant, and the 2 is heterozygous, that means hybrid. And next one, another one is to 2 is to 1, that is homozygous recessive, that is short plant. So that is why, that is how in Mendel's monohybrid, that means only one character, two, that means two, having two different varieties he has taken, and he did the experiments. In first generation only the dominant character was seen, and in the second generation one fourth of recessive character was seen. So that is how he proved that one character will dominate over the other character when it is in a hybrid condition, heterozygous condition. That means capital T, small t, capital T, small t. And when it is under the control of only short, it means it is indicated as a small t, we can see the plant only 25% of dwarf plants and 75% of tall plants can be seen. That is how we can explain monohybrid ratio. So these are the important questions. And so in snails and reptiles, the sex is not genetically determined as in the case of higher organisms like human beings. So that is the male, the autosome of male determines the sex of allosome of the male determines the sex of the baby. That is whether it is a male child or a female child. Okay. So these are the important questions. So hope you have understood. And why Mendel select pea plants for his experiment means, so some important bisexual flowers, and they are annual plants, they complete their life cycle within 1 year, so it is easy to study so many generations together. And it is easy, bisexual plants, it is easy to perform self pollination or cross pollination. And hybridization, that means formation of hybrid plants can be easily observed in the plants, and they exhibit distinct characters. That is why he selected pea plants. What characters Mendel has selected in pea plants means the 7 important characters: color of the flower, position of the flower, color of the seed, shape of the seed, color of the pod, shape of the pod, at the length of the stem. These are the 7 characters he has selected. And Mendel proposed 3 laws. So what are the 3 laws? Law of segregation, law of dominance, law of independent assortment. These are 3 laws. And what happens in a dihybrid ratio? In F1 generation, only dominant character is seen, and in F2 generation, the phenotype ratio is 9 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1. And here in this, here only in asexually reproducing population, only 10% of the population is formed later. So according to the question, which same population, guess the trait that has arisen earlier. That means 60% of the population has arisen. That means the trait B, which is 60% of the population, has arisen earlier. How do Mendel's experiments show? Traits may be dominant or recessive. In heterozygous condition, what happens? One factor will dominate over the other factor. The factor which dominates is called dominant. The factor which is suppressed is called recessive. How do Mendel's experiment show that the traits are inherited independently? So the traits, they do not influence each other, and they always segregate separately, and they segregate and they do not influence each other. They do not get mixed up also. And so a man with blood group marries a woman with blood group O, and their daughter is having a blood group O. So which one is dominant? That means when there is in hybrid condition, so the daughter is having O blood group. That means O blood group is dominant over A blood group. Okay. And how sex of the child determine human beings means human being is having 23 pairs of chromosomes, 44 are called autosomes, 2 are called allosomes. So the allosomes in male are denoted as XY and XX. In females it is denoted as XX. That is, during the formation of gametes, what will happen? The gametes will separate, and if Y chromosome of male fuses with the female gamete, it will result in male child. If X chromosome of male fuses with the female gamete, it will result in female child. Okay, that is how sex is determined. In the snails and the reptiles, the sex is not genetically determined. So the external factors like temperature will influence. in case of reptiles, and in case of snails, the sex can be changed according to the environment. And monohybrid ratio is, that is, in F1 generation only dominant character is seen, and in F2 generation the phenotype is 3 is to 1, 3 tall and 1 dwarf. And if genes are taken into consideration, the ratio is 1 is to 2 is to 1. 1 is homozygous dominant, 2 is heterozygous, and 1 is homozygous recessive. So these are the questions which are important examination point of view. Hope you have understood. Let us see. Let us continue with the next chapter, that is our environment. Okay. Thank you.